Welcome to Creatively Optimized, the podcast for service businesses ready to shine online. I'm Jenny Belanger, the founder of Jenny B Designs, a web design studio that builds strategic and beautiful websites that are designed to book you ideal clients and make you money. With over 10 years of growing my own design business, I'm here to share tips to creatively optimize your business. Get ready to learn web design strategies for high converting websites, digital marketing tactics to reach ideal customers, and systems to simplify operations. If you're ready to blend creativity and strategy, you're in the right place. Join me on this journey to creatively optimize your unique business. Let's do this. Do you ever look at your website traffic and wonder why those visits don't translate into more sales? Have you noticed your competitors showing up higher in searches for your best keywords? Does your website maybe kind of feel stale and dated instead of modern and engaging? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then let's talk about it. Your website is the heart of your online business, but there are some common issues could really be causing you to not attract your ideal clients and make money with your website. And today I'm going to talk about 3 reasons why your website isn't making money. Before we kick things off, if we haven't met before, I'm Jenny B. I own Jenny B Designs. We are a brand and web design studio, and I really adore helping other small business owners really shine online and bring out their brand personality so that they can attract their ideal clients and make more money with their websites. Before I get into the episode, I wanted to read a recent review. This is from Christy Mitchell from Marketing Uncomplicated, and she says, Jenny is the real deal. In the world of marketing, there can be a lot of confusion and misinformation. Jenny is an expert in her space and definitely a valuable resource to her audience. Thank you, Christy, so much for listening and for your review. And if you are listening to the podcast right now, I would love it if you would consider leaving me a rating and review. It really helps others find my podcast and for me to be able to share this information with other small business owners who really need to uplevel their websites. And like I just did with Christy, I would be happy to read yours out and share it with my audience and give you a nod as well for taking the time to write a review. Okay, so now back to the episode. I'm going to talk about those 3 reasons why your website might not be making money for you. The first one is having outdated branding. When someone first lands on your website, what do they notice? It's your branding. And by branding, I mean those elements like your logo, your colors, your fonts, and just that overall visual design. And an outdated or inconsistent brand can really make the difference between converting a visitor or having them click away. Let's first start by talking about your logo. That icon, typically in the upper left-hand corner of your website, it is that first impression of really your modernness or your relevance. And if you launched your business back in 2000 and are still rocking those, remember those 3D bubble letter word art logos? It might be time for an upgrade. Or if you launched your logo, in the 2010s, a lot of times I see those logos where they're square and they have that white background and they're not transparent. Look at your logo. If it isn't transparent behind the words and the image, if you have an image, then it might be time for an upgrade. You want something clean and simple and responsive for mobile devices. And you want it to be able to be consistent throughout your materials. And what I mean is on your website, you want to be able to have that logo. It displays properly. But then it translates to social media. If you are posting an image of yourself and you want to use that logo, you want it to be able to flow on that image as well and to be able to use in all your materials out there. And for an example, if you do have that white background behind your logo, it's going to look a little bit odd, kind of floating in the middle of your picture because it's not transparent. So look at your logo and see maybe it's time to modernize it and update it a little bit. I'm going to talk about 2 examples. If you think about Coca-Cola, they've had a logo for, I don't even know how many years, but a very long time. But if you look at the evolution of their logo, they've had that script and it has kind of evolved over the years. It used to be like ornate curly cues and like really involved. And now it's kind of coming into a more sleek inline version. They didn't reinvent the wheel, but they really streamlined their core visual identity. And that's what I mean by modernize your logo. Another one that has really changed is if you're familiar with the meditation and mindfulness app Headspace, they as well kind of have changed their logo to stay with the trends. When they launched back in, I think, 2010, their branding was basic. It was like that stereotypical yoga meditation visuals, like the Buddha statues and the mountainscapes. But over the last decade, Headspace has really updated their look to have like a brighter, more geometric design and illustrations. And they've adopted that purple and teal color scheme that feels both high tech and approachable. And the app, it went from that really fancy designed out lotus flower to a really minimalist HS abbreviation. So, what I'm trying to get at is brands come out to the gate with a logo and a visual identity, and it needs to evolve as time goes on because your business evolves and the trends evolve. And the people that you want to attract really do change. And so you want to make sure that it aligns. Your website colors, your fonts, and your logo align with your updated services and your updated business. So, the first tip is take a hard look at your visual branding on your website. If you're looking at it and it looks, old, out of touch, and dated, when someone lands there, they'll really question if you are a modern business, if you're staying with the times, if you still are serving your client. And they might click away from you thinking, this company is a little bit behind the times and I don't trust them. And that potential client kind of goes out the door. So branding does matter. Take a look and see if there's a way for you to modernize it if you haven't done so in a little bit of time. The second reason is confusion on the homepage. And this is so important. Your homepage is essentially the main landing page of your website, and confusion here can immediately lose that visitor's interest and trust. When someone lands here, I always say you have 3 seconds or less, and it's probably closer to less, to really clearly identify who you are, what you do, how you help someone, and how to get in touch or how to take the next step, that call to action. And when you don't have that, people tend to get confused. They don't know if they're in the right place and they tend to leave. What I've seen from homepages that are confusing is when they don't have that copy that truly speaks to what they do and who they serve, or when they don't have visuals that reinforce what they do. It's important to make sure that your imagery is attracting the right client and they can see themselves in your process and that you are connecting through these visuals. What I consider a confusing homepage is sometimes when there are those sliders. If you're familiar, when I mean sliders, this was really popular in 2010. I seem to still see it a lot for nonprofits. But when they have a slider up at the top that has a photo and some words on top of it, and then it slides to the next photo with more words on top, these rotating sliders are really distracting and confusing for your visitor. Like I said, we're busy. We don't have time to spend to wait for sliders to rotate and to read all these words. So I find that that's a really confusing way to have someone land on your website. Another confusing thing is when you have overly clever text or questions that don't explain anything or jargon that people just don't get. Sometimes people try to think of something super clever to have on their homepage landing to make what they do sound exciting and fun. But when it's too clever and too confusing, people just don't get it. So I think clarity over cleverness is really important. To be as short and succinct as possible and direct and straight to the point. I'm a web designer, right? And so right when you land on my website, it says that I design websites. Like, it's very clear and simple. You just want to be crystal clear. Another part that's really confusing is those links and menus that lead visitors into clicking down like that deep rabbit hole instead of these clean calls to action. When you have too many links up at the top in your navigation or too many options for people, they tend not to make a decision and sometimes they leave. So it's important to make sure that you look at that top navigation and that it is just your most important, clear calls to action that are driving people to that contact page where we want them to take that final action to get in touch with you, or to that membership page where you want them to take that final action to buy. And an ineffective homepage, it really also misses the opportunity to spotlight that visual proof, like happy clients and reviews, certifications, things like that. You want to make sure that your homepage is not confusing. Because again, this is your first impression. This is where we get people to start to take action and to learn more about you and to get in contact with you. What really works on a benefit-focused homepage is that crystal clear header, a tagline stating with your offer, that call to action, that button, simple organized navigation with calls to action to the key info, and visuals like photos that show the true value that you are able to provide to your client. This clarity and relevance and proof builds immediate homepage trust. So your visitor is far more likely to move forward contacting you and exploring the other pages on your site. It's just really important real estate, and those vital first impressions count. So don't lose those visitors with the confusing homepage, and optimize it to directly showcase what makes you different through visuals, transparency, and easy to understand next steps. And finally, the third reason why your website isn't making you money is that you are not clear on your search engine optimization. Now, you may have a really awesome looking site, tons of content, and even a lot of traffic. But if you aren't paying attention to the basic search engine optimizations that you need, then your website really will be missing out on a massive amount of profit. For example, many businesses totally miss the opportunity of just optimizing their homepage or services page to rank well on Google. Some of the biggest on-page issues that might be causing the problem include your website heading tags not being properly structured with relevant keywords. And what I mean by that is your website has headers, and when you are designing your website, you have specific heading tags. So your H1 and your H2 and your H3, and understanding how your website is built and not properly first deciding what is an H1 or an H2, and then second, not including those keywords in your H1s and H2s. That is one of the main problems that I see. A lot of times too, I also see this in WordPress, is that designers tend to build websites using the header tags as a design style. And in order to use a design style, sometimes they would choose the heading tags instead of actually styling it out and then assigning the appropriate heading tag. Sometimes this happens when you use a template or a theme. It's just how it is. And so that's important to pay attention and making sure that you are styling your website properly, but more important, you're using the proper heading tag. Another thing I see is the page title tags are just really too long. You want to make sure that they are short and concise and focused and are using the proper keywords. Another thing is that your images are missing your alt or keywords. So you want to make sure that every single image on your website has a description. These are called your alt tags. This is really important for people who are accessing your website who are unable to view the image. You want to make sure that when they're using a reader, that the reader properly is able to describe the image. But you want to make sure that the images also has that alt tag with any keywords that are important to you. And then finally, the last thing I see is the inconsistent navigation labeling. So this means that if you have navigation on your website and you name your page in the navigation one thing, and then you actually name the page something else, in the page name, in the H1, in the H2, the headers. There's some confusion there for Google because Google doesn't quite understand, and it interrupts the flow and especially the user experience. So that's another problem that I see. All this missed SEO optimization really translates to lost impressions and visitors from search, which could definitely drive significant lead generation. So then what's the solution? I would say if you are wondering about what all this means and if you have everything set up right, then grab an SEO audit and you can understand exactly what you could do on the back end of your website to increase your discoverability in Google with a few small changes. And there you go. Those are the 3 reasons why your website might not be making any money. Let's recap. The first one is the old, outdating branding elements like your logo, colors, fonts, and photographies that no longer connect with those modern audiences and make you seem relevant. And then it's the confusing homepage messaging and poor landing optimization that fails to clearly communicate your differentiators and really direct visitors into becoming clients. And then finally, it's lacking the basic on-page and technical SEO practices that limit your organic rankings and impressions. If you have any questions about these, or you're looking for someone who might be able to help make some tweaks to your website with these 3 issues, definitely reach out to me. I would love to help. It's kind of like my jam, helping others shine online. You could find more information over on my website at jennybedesigns.com. And I thank you so much for listening. I will see you next time. Thanks so much for listening to this podcast all the way to the end. I really appreciate you being here. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast, rate, review, and share it with someone else you know it can help. If you like this episode, then I want to invite you to visit jennybedesigns.com, where you'll find videos and resources to help make your current website work even harder for you. And if you're feeling like your current website doesn't truly reflect you or your brand today, it's not attracting your ideal clients or making sales, or maybe you just feel embarrassed by it and it's holding your business back, then reach out. I'd love to help you design a website that truly reflects you, works for you 24/7, bringing in those ideal clients and making you money. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time for another new episode.